We are go for liftoff in T minus 30.
Hit the record button.
Gosh, that's swell.
It's a Rose Blog Talk Radio.
And I'd like to welcome not only a dear friend of mine, but also a very good poet, a very good poet, performer, juggler. What do you do? What else does Michael Ray do? He conducts his own workshops that we'll be talking about today. He occasionally hosts open mics, sometimes sporadically here and there. Mental Mondays is one of those places where I've seen this cat, and he's awesome. He is working on his fourth, you heard that right, guys, fourth book. I have to catch up to this guy because I haven't even done my first. So without further ado, I want to introduce a very, very good friend of mine. Michael Ray de Los Angeles is in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Victor. It's a very high honor to be on your show.
Likewise. And we were actually talking, and I need to stop saying actually. So every time, okay, here's the thing. For every time that I say actually or basically, from now on, you're gonna make a count. Okay, you're gonna make a little stick. I don't know how you say them. You're gonna count them. So for every time that I say actually or basically, I'm gonna pay you $1.
Ooh. The audience at home, check that out.
That's starting from now until the end of the show. Deal.
All right.
And if you say actually or basically, you're gonna anyway. You owe me lunch.
All right. I love cooking.
As long as he's vegetarian, it's good, right?
Absolutely. It'll be the best vegetarian you've had all day.
Oh, yes. Speaking of other, in the theme of the night, I actually I owe you $1 already. Oh my God. I can't believe I just fell for that one right now. Anyhow, we were talking before the show started, and you were telling me that you've been a vegetarian for over a decade, and I just wanted to tell the audience that I didn't know you before that. You became a vegetarian. So can you tell the audience how has your lifestyle changed, or how has become a vegetarian change your perspective on life?
Wow, that's deep, yo. I would say it's definitely given me a sort of empathy for my fellow sentient animals, sentient beings, and when I look at food, I eat it with intention, and I try to keep this practice. So one of the things that made it easier for me to really start embracing vegetarianism and veganism and raw foodism was just really getting to understand my food, and a lot of that came into my ecological studies.
Okay. So, but was it hard?
I would say the first year was the hardest. It was really difficult in terms of figuring out and retraining my diet and really figuring out that I didn't really want the food, but in many cases I had been conditioned to want it. So, for instance, burgers were a big thing in my life beforehand, and so I spent at least the first year trying to figure out how to make the perfect burger, and that came in the form of lentil burgers, tofu burgers, all sorts of sprouts and different mixtures of cumin and all sorts of recipes. And now I don't crave the burger or even like making the burgers sometimes. Now it's just about enjoying the food.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, well, here we go. I became a vegetarian for a very short time. I think it was just one poem that I wrote when I was a vegetarian. And I wasn't really a vegetarian. I just chose not to eat burger one day, and I thought that was being a vegetarian. But it turns out it's not that easy. And would you mind telling my audience about Lorax community?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I totally would love to talk about Lorax community. I'm the editor for the Lorax Community Zine, and each quarter we put together a series of recipes and DIY projects that focus on sustainability and different eating practices. So for people who don't know how to start off with vegetarianism or veganism, like there's often a lot of questions. And so everything from what should I eat to what am I eating to what about the body products that I use, like soaps or conditioners. And so we try to sort of provide some answers to some of those questions through our zine and our website.
Cool. Do you want to promote their website at all? I don't remember their website.
Okay, it's loraxcommunity.org. That's LORAX community, no spaces, and .org, just like the Dr. Seuss book.
Yes. Actually, okay. This is going to be fun. You inspire me to actually read. There you go. Read Dr. Seuss recently with Lorax and green eggs and hams, and basically revisit some of the children literature. And you and I have one common favorite book of ours, called The Little Prince.
Oh, yes.
Le Petit
yes.
How do you say it? Le Petit
Prince. Yeah.
Yes.
That is an amazing book.
It was such an amazing book, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I think... Oh, there we go. I'm counting the time that I'm saying it. I'm like, I already had like 5 hours. I read it when I was probably, I don't know, I might have been 8, 9, maybe my teens. I read Little Prince, El Principito. It was a translation in Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was captivated. First of all, I was captivated by the drawings and by the drawing of the elephant inside the snake.
That looks like a hat.
that looks like a hat. And then I think I read it a few years later. I haven't read it recently, but there was actually the second or third time that I read it because I found that book was so amazing that in so many levels that I eventually realized what he was talking about and how devastating was the fact that the character dies. And sorry to spoil it for those kids that... I'm sorry, kids. He dies. But it's such a perfect story. I don't know why. It's just like so perfect, so redeeming. And what is your opinion about it?
Wow. I didn't actually read it until until maybe I was like in my 20s. And I probably read it as a child. I'm fairly certain that I did, but the first time actually really understanding it was on this side of adulthood. And it was part of the whole process of revisiting a lot of those childhood stories, things like Dr. Seuss and The Giving Tree even. Some of these stories that, you sit down and read as a child, they develop new meaning and your relationship to those stories changes as you grow older.
Right. And the interesting thing about children books or good children books is that they stick with you forever. Because as a child you're so impressionable and everything is, you're a sponge. You're basically. I was talking to a young warrior this morning. His name is Dan Hernandez, and he was at Tiachucha last night. If you see him, you will know who this guy is, because he's got the biggest afro.
Those warriors, they definitely stand out.
Yes, they do. Great thing about this kid, because now I realize he's only 17, right? And I was like really, really impressed with the maturity that he has. That I kept backing up and saying, "Wait, you're 17?" And he said, "Yes, I'm 17." I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, "Wow, how does a 17-year-old think or talk?" Or I started to try to remember when I was 17. I'm like, "Wait, should I be saying these things to you? Is this deep? Is this too much?" He's like, no, it's cool. You can tell that he was like a sponge, And I was like, oh my God. I have a responsibility to speak like an adult, like a 40-year-old, should speak. And I'm like, stop it. He knows you already. So I don't know. It was very weird. However, the point is that he actually was listening to what I was saying, and I'm like, wow, yeah. If you have such a indelible mark on a child when you write a good story for children, you have a big responsibility in your hands to deliver a great message to them.
Absolutely.
Have you written any children stories?
I've written children's stories. I've never published any.
How come?
I guess it's one thing that I haven't been ready to do. Partly because I need to complete the artwork that goes with it. Partly, I believe that a large part of the children's stories are the visuals that go along with them.
That could be true. Yes. Yes. definitely. You're right. And it can actually be very challenging.
Absolutely.
First of all, not knowing who your audience is going to be. Second of all, is discerning what to include and what not to include as an adult writing for children. I think it's very hard. doesn't sound very hard, but it is very hard.
Absolutely. I think part of the hardest part about it was really maintaining a view or a story that was open to multiple levels of people, regardless of social class, regardless of cultural background, gender identity, or even language. I really wanted to captivate a story that would transcend those elements of those traditional structures.
Mm-hmm.
And I just
right.
It goes back to The Little Prince. That was a story that really transcends a lot of cultural ideals, and it's one of the most translated books in the world.
Yeah. Yes, I believe it is. Which brings me to my next question here.
Okay.
Because I was reading what we were discussing earlier, and one of the things that I enjoyed doing last year was one of the workshops that you set up at Tia Chucha's. Oh wait, it wasn't Tia Chucha. Sorry, it was your own writing workshop, which the intention of this workshop was to basically get off your butt and write it, because the title was "It Ain't Gonna Write Itself," and that really helped me to. There was a day that we went to the Getty Museum here in LA, and I was actually going through a period where I could not write a sentence for the life of me. I couldn't write, and I didn't know why. There was a block. There was many things going in my head. So you invited all the participants to come up to the Getty, and we met. It was a beautiful day. We were, having a great time. But one thing I discovered is how going through the garden and appreciating everything that surrounds you, how everything's poetry, how everything can be written down in a way that is very enticing from a scientific point of view, from an artistic point of view. It was really, really amazing. And at the end, I could not stop writing that day, and it went on for 4 days. I think I wrote like 4 or 5 pieces from that date alone. Tell us about it. Tell us about your workshop.
So the workshop really it goes into that sort of awareness of self, and the garden is definitely a place, at least for me, where inspiration strikes. Inspiration is fused in the garden, and so when we go through there, we're brought into a sense of awareness, and we're able to focus on what really matters, which is now. And when we're in the moment, we can write. We can, because we're not thinking about, whatever else may be except that present state. And so as we're going through the garden, we're looking at the plants, we're looking at the shape of the leaves, we're looking at the structure, we're looking at how they feel, how they smell, how how we're engaging our senses, and that really brings us into the present moment. And as writers, we want to be able to paint those pictures. We want to be able to show these landscapes that we're experiencing, and being able to do so makes us stronger writers, not just, from a poetic perspective, but from a business perspective as well.
Right. What helped me what helped me that day in particular was the fact that how you can see a painting or a photograph, whenever you're out and about in a museum, which I love going to museums. But whenever they ask you about a particular painting or photograph and how does it make you feel, it makes you really think, and it makes you realize, wow, what is going on in my head as I'm watching that painting or I'm watching that photograph is also as amazing as the piece that I'm looking at. And It was really, really fantastic. And we joke afterwards, it's like, please do not tap me on the shoulder, because that meant we had to stop writing. And how as a writer, if they're telling you to write and you're writing, and then somebody taps you on the shoulder and says stop writing, it's like no, not now. This is a great moment, and you're saying we can't continue. Like, but then I was like, wait, I can do this on my own. I can go back home and take 10, 15 more minutes or half an hour, or take as much time as you like and work on your piece. But he was just being there, with other writers. That was such an amazing experience. So, and you're going to have another workshop, right?
Absolutely. So that was the first incarnation, the writing laboratory that was set up. This year has sort of been a rebirth and expansion of that project, and so part of it is the launching of my newest website, which is thegreatmoon.com.
Okay. Great website, by the way. I was looking at it earlier.
Thank you.
It looks fantastic. So far, it's wonderful. It's got a gallery, you got literature, your workshops. I can click on the workshops. I didn't do that earlier. There you go.
Yes.
So you have Writing with Intention, The Power of the Pen.
Absolutely. And that's what was developed from that day, from that workshop. This is the sort of expansion of that, and really understanding how we focus our writing and how we can write with intention. What power is in there once we understand how to write with intention. So it's a circular. It's the snake eating itself. It's itself reflecting. And so when you master both and you're balanced, you become a whole writer.
Right, and actually, God, another daughter. So my listeners are going to ask you how did they join, when, where, how, and you just want to have them go to your website, right?
Yes, all the information is going to be on there.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. I don't want to take the whole time talking about your workshops because I would like to listen to your pieces that you have prepared for tonight.
Okay.
Would you like to start now?
Now is a good time. I love the now. So
awesome.
This one is a recipe for liberation. Like I said, I love food. And so, recipe for liberation. In a large bowl, take 1 cup of idealism and a handful of dreams. Start with just a few. You can always add more later, and they are always in season. Mix well with 2 heaping spoonfuls of perseverance. Be careful, a little will go a long way. Sprinkle with integrity and let the mixture rise. Add wisdom, education, and experience to taste. Slowly pour mixture into 9-inch glass pie pan. Set the oven to 396 degrees Fahrenheit, 202 degrees Celsius, and then bake for 45 minutes. Let cool and then serve.
And it tastes good.
It does. Liberation does.
It does taste very good. Yes, it does taste very good. And I think I heard you read that one before at Mental Mondays, which, by the way, for those that don't know, Mental Mondays is a monthly open mic that happens once a month. Let's see. And that happens at House of Brews in San Fernando. And it's an awesome venue because sometimes hosted by Michael Ray or myself, but it's mostly hosted by Evie Spirit Lovechild.
Yes, amazing woman.
Amazing woman. And also Mama Hayes, who is, we
Definitely
are
amazing.
both, yeah, I am so in love with that woman. She's like my other aunt or my other, family member that I never had. So really, really cool people, really cool audience, and hopefully we see Jessica and who else? Jessica Delgado usually goes there, Gabby Delgado, her sister, and the usual people.
Yeah, we got it.
Did actually.
We got a Mental Mondays family.
Yeah, we do. It's funny you say that, but we do, because that was the first time that I opened up to the audience, and it was frightening, very frightening, and at the same time liberating and very mental. And I recommend that place to whoever's listening today. Hopefully we can post this on Mental Monday, which is coming up, and you'll see how amazing that is.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Do you want to share another poem?
Yeah, I'd love to. This is a Diaspora de Longique, and it sort of sums up my family history in a poem. And we came from Arizona, from Mexico, from Los Angeles, our names forgotten, our past rewritten, our hearts just barely beating. We moved, then settled, somewhere between mediocrity and apathy, erasing our warrior ancestry. Spilt blood, saturated in captured oil, and celebrated with hollow planks of burning redwood desire, remind us that here, too, are the remnants of genocide. I ask, who still has the strength to smile? I have crossed rivers, bridges, and borders, from La Mirada to the avenues. I have slept while gunshots wept and helicopters screamed ownership of Padre Sky's face. And yes, I jumped fences through barbed wire, only to find more twisted metal in my pathway. Now, I walk barefoot, having released the lawless shackles of yesterday. Looking back, I see the trail of tears, sweat, and blood my ancestors left. Looking forward, I see the seeds of their efforts beginning to push through the dirt. We came from Arizona, from Mexico, from Los Angeles. Our names rewritten, our pasado forgotten, but our hearts still beating.
Like it a lot. I like it a lot, like Jim Carrey would say.
Yes, funny man.
Awesome. Actually, there's another daughter.
I'm up to 4 actuallys at this point.
Well, and I have to take away the one time that you say that word, and so that doesn't count.
Yep.
That
can count. We're back down to 3.
It's not that bad anymore. It used to be. Well, I'm not gonna tell. Anyways, yeah, I can tell my secret. Every time that I heard the words, those words, I cringed every time. I'm like, there I go again. And sometimes I would say the word 2 or 3 times in a row. I'm like, what am I thinking? Anyways, just to let the audience know that this show actually is going to go on for 45 minutes, and we actually have like less than 10 minutes left. And I wanted to talk to Michael Ray about many other things that he does. He does photography. He paints. He's a chalk artist. You name it. This cat has done it all. And is there anything you want to leave people with? Because I don't know where to start at this point. I have so many things written down. And
well, let's go with what's the third thing on the list?
The third thing on the list?
What do you have that's number 3 on the list? I like the number 3. I'll go behind that door.
Let's see. Rock climbing, outdoors, camping, riding, circus. Circus?
Humboldt Circus.
Humboldt Circus.
We have a winner. Woo! I love
that was about
those
Humboldt
cats.
Circus.
I love those monkeys. Yeah, I was while in Humboldt. I was attending there, and that's where I got my BA in literature, in English literature. I was kidnapped and held hostage by the Humboldt Circus during my time there, and that's where I learned how to fire, spin, and juggle, and perform random acts of absurdity. And I loved it.
How long did you do it for? How many years or months?
It was years. It was 2 years at the Humboldt Circus, but I do have a background in performance art, theater, and music as well.
No, there's a lot of music in your background.
Yes.
How many instruments can you play? Because we mentioned a few before the show started, and I'm like, well, you know what? Just mention them on the air because you have too many under your belt.
Okay, I'm fairly fluent. I studied actually classical guitar. I wanted to play punk rock, and both my parents said you go take some lessons first, and they made me play classical guitar. Both of them, my mother and father, they played in an orchestra while I was growing up, and so my mother played the cello and my father played the clarinet, so I had that strong musical background, and so I picked up the guitar, learned how to play it, and then the piano is my secondary instrument. After that, I explored the percussion side of things, and West African instruments were, I would say, my favorite as of late.
Okay. I'd like to actually see you. I say it actually again. I'd like to actually see you.
Ding.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to hear you play the kora one of these days.
Oh wow, me too. I'd love if I ever have a kora again in my life, I will definitely play it, and you will be one of the first people to hear it.
All right, I held you to it.
Okay.
Before we go, because we don't have much time left, I would like to take it with another poem, if you have one, or something, a message from your sponsors.
Okay. I would say the Extra Mile delivery service in Montebello is definitely a proud sponsor. They do deliveries for low service cost, and it goes anywhere from Montebello all the way to Mid-City. And the extramile.services is one, and Winwith and Sangha, amazing venue that has invited me out multiple times to do guest lectures and feature presentations. We do have a cinema night coming up with the 13th Floor Art Collective, and that'll be on February 18th and ongoing every month as well.
And how do people submit their? They have to submit their documentary, or?
Yes, we do all sorts of films. One way would be to connect with the 13th Floor Art Collective on Facebook land. Facebook, so that'd be one place. Otherwise, I would go directly to winwithinsangha.org. That's, or actually, it's just Win Within. So that's WIN and then WITHIN, winwithin.org.
Oh, okay. So there's no Sangha after that. Okay.
No.
Great. So you want to take it out with another poem or song, or
we got
a
time
harmonica?
for one more poem?
What do you want to do?
All right, we got.
I think the audience wants to hear another poem. Right, audience?
Woo! Go. Okay,
yeah,
that's what the audience said. I heard him say it. Okay. This one is from my 2013 collected works. It was originally published as part of the Women's Resource Center's biannual The Matrix. War is over. Ladies and gentlemen, youth and elders, war is over. Yes, peace has come. Alert the troops on every battlefield. Tell them that the conflict is done. Spread the word. Peace has come. Mothers, call your sons and daughters home. Soldiers, lay down your guns. We've built up our communities and forgiven our not-so-benevolent ones. All so that we could stand together proudly and say, war is finally done. Angels will no longer need to play their melancholy songs in gutters or back alleyways upon empty bottles of rum. We started throwing flower seeds instead of dropping bombs. War is finally over. Peace has now begun.
Yeah. All we need is love. That's all I have to say. That's awesome.
All we need.
And on a serious note, I have to say to the audience and to Michael Ray that I am really blessed to have his friendship, and I'm really blessed to have met Michael Ray and many other artists, many other poets through Tia Chucha's Centro Cultural and Silmar. I would like to once again thank you, Michael Ray, for coming into the show. This is actually the second time you've appeared on my show, so I really, obviously, you're on my high standards of guests.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'd like to actually take it out with another song. What do you think about that?
Oh, I'm all ears.
We are go for liftoff in T minus 30.
Hit the record button.
Gosh, that's swell.
Well, I didn't see that coming.